Afternoon, everybody. My name is Andy, and this is Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. The big question that's flying around at the moment is, should Austrades be back at work? The Health Minister, Matt Hancock, said only a few days ago he was, inverted commas, comfortable with Austrades going back to work as long as the 2-metre social distancing guidelines are kept. In reality, Austrades keeping the 2-metre social distancing is probably not going to happen in some cases. There's been many new guides written about the distancing, what they can and can't do. We'll be going into this, but the new version of the site operating procedure, including the risk management hierarchy, says if you can't keep 2 metres, what to do. So this, I'll say, is about as clear as mud. And joining me today, we've got Jen Gardner, decorator, and we've got a Spark, Andy, both self-employed like myself. So we're in the industry, all pretty much in the same situation here. Good afternoon to you both. Jen?
Hiya.
What do you think? Do you think we should be back at work yet?
I personally don't think we should be back at work yet. I think it's too soon to be, it's just starting to calm down. Yesterday was the lowest death toll at around 600. So everyone's thinking, oh, it's comfortable. We go back to work now. Let's all rush out and do it. But I'm worried that there's going to be, a second spike, and it might actually be worse than the first. So I think everyone should just sit back for a few more weeks, maybe.
Andy, do you agree with that? Or are you sort of thinking, if guidelines can be adhered to, get back to work?
I think technically and scientifically, we definitely should be going back to work, because we should be staying in a lockdown situation. But I know there are people out there like myself who aren't getting any support from anywhere, that the old money burden is on them, is pushing people back to work. So it is hard, but scientifically, no, we shouldn't really be going back to work, I don't think.
Well, thank you for everybody that has already logged on. As you can see from the ticker at the bottom of the screen, get in touch. If you have a comment that's read out, you're thrown into the hat for a £20 Amazon voucher, which quite honestly all of us can do with at the moment. So keep the comments coming in. Very interesting. Already a lot of people are saying big sites are open, small sites aren't. Jen, do you think, again, it seems to be one rule for the big companies and another rule for the self-employed such as us?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of big companies are maybe slightly a little bit greedy, which is, I've known a few of them are taking on the furlough scheme, but on the side they're still messaging their employers saying, can you just go do this job? Can you just go do this job? I do think it's one rule for one rule for another.
And Andy, you're self-employed, Spark. You're obviously kicking your £20 notes out the way to get into your office, as we know you Sparks are paid far too much. If you get a call this afternoon to go to a job, are you likely to go, or are you going to have to make sure everything's kind of in place to do it as per the guidelines?
Well, I've got to make sure things are in place. One of the main issues is the age of the person. A lot of my customers are over 70. A lot of our pensioners. So I'm also very worried about going to the house, but I'll only go to breakdowns, or I'll only go to something where I'm not going to have any contact with them. So if there's some garden lights at the end of the garden, and I'm working in an outhouse or something like that, or it's something where they haven't got any electricity, then I will go to it. But I'll make sure that they haven't got any symptoms, and I'll wear gloves and I'll wear a mask, just because morally I have to go and help them and get their electricity back on for them.
Well, I think we've got a lot of things to quickly go through. Shortage of materials, different environments to be working in. Gary Quinton has put a really good point up, which none of us have considered. I certainly haven't. He said he'd love to go back to work full time, but he can't get a building surveyor to inspect each stage, so he's stuck in limbo. That's a great point. It doesn't matter if you're on your own as a bricklayer with a labourer helping you out, or you've got a team of 50 or 100. If we can't get building inspectors along or surveyors to inspect, what happens then? Are they almost in a different category, do you think, Andy? Or are they very much, let's be fair, inspectors, when they've turned up on my jobs, they do it from their car sometimes. So what do you think?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. That must be very frustrating, because you're waiting for the surveyor half the time anyway to turn up, aren't you, to look at things. I wondered whether they can do anything on video. Surveyors can do anything on video phones, because most of the time they're just looking down at foundations, aren't they? I know some
point. I think answer to your really good question, Gary. The big thing that I've done over the years, if the building inspectors are busy or they're overbooked, and you've got a concrete lorry turning up in 2 hours and he's pouring regardless, I've just been told to take photos and send them in if he or she's happy to give their number or email them. Otherwise, as you know, you can be sitting there for days paying for lads to sit there. Concrete lorry turns up and gets sent away. So ask your building inspector if they're happy with photos, or as Andy says, videos. Connor Russon, I hope I pronounced your name right, mate. Again, great question. What is the actual rules? I'm the same financially, need to go back to work being self-employed, but there's one rule for one for another. He's got a pal who's a Sparky going back to work because it's government-funded site, and they're obviously losing money. So, Jen, it's back to this point. Big sites seem to be opening up. The Wimpeys, the Persimmons, the Barretts, all the big boys. But the likes of us three that are self-employed tradespeople, it's a lot harder, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're getting the extra little nudge and the help that they need to continue, whereas us small self-employed or limited companies aren't. I read about Matt Hancock saying that Taylor Wimpey and the other big ones are able to go back, with contradicting himself, saying that he never actually said that construction sites had to stop working in the first place.
Well, again, what you've said is what he said, which to me isn't clear. And what I want to quickly do is ask your opinions. A lot of the big sites, the new builds, you know, your mega sites that are putting up new houses, all sorts of paperwork involved, as we all know. Hence, I'm not involved. I'm not good with paperwork. But there's a new version of site operating procedures, including risk management hierarchy, which is basically T's and C's of accepting this coronavirus or not. What it's saying is the new site operating procedure, the SOPs, workers are to stay 2 meters apart. Now, Andy, I'd love to hear, and Jen, Andy first, your thoughts on this. Basically, what they're then saying is, if you can't keep your 2 meters, to do things such as minimize the frequency, minimize the number of workers, be side by side, not face to face. Andy, 1 minute we've been told to keep 2 meters, and then there's small print on this printout saying, if you can't keep your 2 meters, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's bonkers, isn't it? On a big construction site, I just don't think you could stay 2 meters apart. For instance, if you look at plaster borders and dry liners, when they put up a massive 8x4 sheet, you can't do that on your own. They both have to be standing together to put the sheet up on the ceiling, or on walls or anything like that, or someone mixing up for the spread. So you just, on a massive site, you can't stay 2 meters apart. Even if you go to work together in the van, you're not even 2 meters apart then, and then you're both playing with the radio and things like that, changing the station. It's just cross-contamination all of the time. So I think if you're like us and you work on your own, then you could adhere to that. But on a building site, on a big site like Taylor Wimpey or something like that, or building blocks of flats like they do in London, I just think that's impossible.
If you've just logged in to join us, this is Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. Today we are discussing, should us trades be back at work? Yes or no? One thing we do want to emphasise is we aren't saying you have to go back to work. We are just taking the Health Minister, Matt Hancock's announcement a few days ago. He is, inverted commas, comfortable for us to go back to work. I bet he is, because he's got his snappy suit on at home or in number 10. So, Jen, let's look at a couple of the questions coming in. The general consensus is small firms are going to be hit worse. Steve Harris has said exactly that. It's the small companies that are going to get hit worse. 92% of tradespeople will be self-employed at some stage. And again, it's in the 90s percent-wise people that are going to be working for small micro businesses. Do you agree with that? Is it us that's going to get hit hardest?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah, it's definitely going to be us.
Do you think, Andy, just quickly before we went on air, you were sadly in the same boat as me. It sounds grand being a director of a limited company, but in reality, you know, we're a sole director, which means we work for ourselves. We pay ourselves up to the national insurance threshold, $760 a month, whatever it is. We're going to get nothing. There's a lot of people suffering. Would you like to see the government do more? And do you think they're going to?
Oh my goodness, I'd love them to do more. I mean, unfortunately, when you have a limited business, you are called a director. And when you say that to people imagine you sort of smoking a cigar on a big leather chair, telling people what to do. And it's not being a limited company. It's just a way of protecting your sort of personal assets, if you like. So if you've got any type of construction firm and you're doing big jobs where you buy lots of materials, you should be limited, because if the customer doesn't pay you, then in theory, if you're not limited, then the wholesalers could take you to court and they could take your house in exchange for the materials you have. So companies should be limited. But what we're finding is limited companies, like we were just saying, sole directors, we are not entitled to any help from the government at all. If you're an employee, you can get help, and if you're self-employed, that's not a limited director, you can get help as well, 80% at £2,500. But limited directors cannot get any help at all, like me and you, and that's very hard, because we're basically not entitled to anything. And even universal credit, I got told, because my wife's a nurse and she's working, that I'm not entitled to that either. So I don't get anything at all. So it is really hard for us, and that is why we are going to be hit the most out of everybody. Taylor Wimpey, who's got thousands of employees and they're getting government help, they can carry on, but us small ones, we can't.
Well, Wayne Mitch, his comment is highlighting everything we've just discussed for the last minute or so. The big companies were threatening trades that if they don't go to the big sites, they would be in breach of contract. Yeah. So this is going back, isn't it? I've heard through friends going to big sites. I won't name the developers, but they've got this pack of paper with massive great words in saying, listen, you're signing this or you're not coming into work. Lads and lasses have said, what happens if we don't sign it? You're on your toes, you're back home within 20 minutes. Jen, is this forcing people that need the money to sign something they're not happy with, or they don't get work?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe they're putting people in a predicament where they've got to decide. They've got to decide their health or money to live, and they're feeling like, if they don't sign and go into work, then they're going to get sacked, and then they're going to be in an even worse predicament and struggling. So I think they're being held over a barrel over it.
Well, because this thing's so what's the word? It's so up in the air. There's nothing set in stone. Sorry, we've got that many comments coming in. They're running off the bottom of the screen. But I just saw Dan Dobson. He said all non-critical sites should be shut. It's a great point. So I presume what he means by that is obviously hospitals going up, such as Nightingale, etc., key workers. So, Andy, would you agree with that? Because at the moment, let's put you as PM. Would you say all non-critical sites should be shut? Let's keep the hospitals, etc., being built, but non-essential, such as Auntie Doris having a bedroom decorated or Uncle Phil having a small extension. Would you have that on lockdown?
Well, yes, but he's got two things on his mind, isn't he? He's got the health of the nation, which he has to look after, and he's going to be judged on in future elections. Mm-hmm. But also, in the UK, there's 27 million people that are of working age, and 10% of them are in the construction industry. So 2.7 million are in the construction industry. And so we are, as a construction industry, we are the backbone to the UK. We're the backbone of the economy. We keep them going. We're the infrastructure of the UK. So on the other hand, he's got that. So if everything stops, then everything is going to collapse. And there's always the thing they always look at in recessions. What's happening in the construction industry, and if that drops, then that is going into recession. So he has got those two things, and I guess that's why Hancock sort of said, briefly said, we could go back to work, I suppose, on construction sites. But really and truly, we should be, unless it's somebody in need, I would think.
Well, there's a lot of people. Jen, we talked about this before we went on air. I'm just trying to find the comments. Sorry, they're flying through. Basically about getting to and from work. The key thing here is we know vans and their sizes. If you've got 2 or 3 people in a cab, you're not keeping your 2 meter distancing. If you're traveling a bit of distance as well in terms of getting to the job, that's not right. So you said you've seen it as well. Do you think more and more people are doing this just to get to work?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're where they're being told, oh, they're comfortable to be working at site, and if they've got to work less than 2 meters apart, then what's the difference in travelling in a van to and from work? I know someone that's in this predicament at the moment, and my take and view on it was you shouldn't really be doing it. But others' take on it is, well, if they're having to work close together and just wash their hands more and be more careful, excuse me, at work, then what's the difference in travelling in a van together at work, rather than 2 separate vans, both being more tired? What's the difference?
Well, Andy, sorry, I'm trying to skim through all these comments. Thank you ever so much for getting involved. Remember, if you get your comment read out, straight into the hat, the Amazon voucher of £20, which all of us quite honestly could do with at the moment. So far, in my opinion, the most valid point, Danny Sheehan, what he's found on sites is the agency boys' rates have dropped as there's so many more looking for work, and they've had to reduce their rates to get a look in on any work. Andy, does this mean we're digging ourselves our own hole, literally, no pun intended, because people are dropping their rates to get work? What does that hold for the future?
Well, I think one of the things that we should not do is watch the news so much, because it causes panic. And that, I know a lot of people in the trades industry are panicking now, because everybody keeps talking about a massive recession, and we all know what happened last time when I remember when I moved into a house during the last recession, that the builder on site told me that he was working for £80 a day because of the recession, because he had to drop his rates to get the work. We must not panic. We can't panic about it, because that causes things like that to happen. So we shouldn't panic about things like that, because really the money is still there. The money in the economy has paused. Everything's been paused. During the last recession, people weren't being paid furlough to stay at home. So we should not panic and stop watching the news, because the news, they love catastrophe, don't they? They love giving us negativity. So if we can hold around, and we must remember, like I said before, we are the backbone to the economy. So we mustn't panic and sort of lower our rates too much, because even though there probably will be a recession, it will go quite negative and quite deep. It will be short-lived compared to the last one, because the money is still there. People have still got the money, and we just try not to panic, and don't go rushing to lower your rates too much. That's what I'd personally say anyway. I'm not sure what you guys would think about that.
Well, if you've just joined us, this is Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. My name is Andy, and I've got Jen the Decorator and Andy the Spark joining us to talk about, should us trades be back at work or not? Please send comments in, and as the ticker on the bottom of the screen says, if you have your comment read out, straight into the hat for a £20 Amazon voucher. I do apologise if somebody saw me smirking during that last bit you said, Andy, but Martin Bird he's made me smile, because what he said is so honestly true, but it does make you laugh. His comment makes you laugh, doesn't it? Normally so overcautious to safety and health and risk management, all of a sudden a killer of infectious disease services. Crack on, lads, just sign here.
Yeah.
I mean, he's hit the nail on the head, hasn't he, Andy?
But make sure you wear a yellow jacket.
Yeah.
And your goggles.
It's true though, isn't it? If you look at it, we've big sites, the health and safety and paperwork and forms are ridiculous. We've got this killer virus which is killing tens of thousands of people. Right, sign this bit of paper, crack on.
Yeah,
they're a bit weird, aren't they?
And I read this morning that people going into these big sites are signing this waiver, as you were speaking about, and they're all using the same pen, and nobody's cleaning the pen afterwards. So they haven't got their special high-vis pen. But that is ironic, isn't it? That we're so over the top with health and safety, and wear this and wear that, and but yeah, there's a killer virus, so get yourselves back in. But that is also pressure, as we were saying, from the big companies saying, if you don't come in, you're in breach of contract. I would check into that. That doesn't sound quite right, does it?
I think as well, it's difficult for us self-employed trades. We haven't got stacks of cash, and we tend to do things on the hop. We've had no formal training, a lot of us, in taking on staff and obviously forming contracts, payment schedules, etc. And we have to try and sort of manage this as we go along. Do you think we almost need to have more, not necessarily bodies, but more federations and groups, companies to help us out with advice. Because Jen, if you've got a difficult pay or you're not sure about going to a job, you've almost got to do it yourself. Do you think we need a bit more support from these federations?
Yeah, I think they should be there offering support, because people are feeling so much pressure. They're like, if they're struggling for money as it is, and they're being told, sign this waiver, you need to come to work, all they're going to think about is, I need to support my family, so I don't want to lose my job, so I'm going to have to do it, aren't I? Like, and that's how they're thinking. We need some other bodies there that can give us advice and check into these contracts, and that they're actually not just trying to play their workers, because they're desperate. It's like they can jump in there, get them to sign it, because they know people are desperate to get back to work because they need the money.
Yeah, it's a form of bullying. That's a form of bullying, getting people to come back to work so that the big sites can make their money to sell their houses.
Exactly. Yeah. I've certainly got my views on it, but obviously I'll have to be careful what I say. But repeating some of the comments again, this is backing this up. Wayne Mitch, our big site in London is still doing a fired drill every Monday morning, where 300 people are gathering outside the job to sign the register. Now, this week, 1 minute we've got to keep 2 meters apart. Next minute they're saying with the operating procedure that, if you can't, these are the certain rules, keep back to back and have more breaks. But again, Jen, is this getting even more unclear? It doesn't seem to be helping anyone, does it?
No, I think they're just making the rules up as they go along. Just so that the companies can just carry on earning money and get back to normal. It just seems to be like they're just making up rules as they go along. I don't understand it at all.
The crazy thing about that is, do you know how many people die in a fire every year? It's like 200 or 300. You're more chance of dying of coronavirus by going in that burning site than a fire drill, and they're doing fire drills. They should be. I don't know what they're doing with training and things, but we have to have training courses for everything, for asbestos to change a diamond. We have to have a training course, a piece of paper for everything. Are they doing a training course? Are they doing a session with all the guys on the social distancing, on cleaning your hands? It'd be interesting to know on these big sites, guys. Are you having any guidance, any training on how to protect yourself from the coronavirus if you're being forced to go?
Well, the one viewer's got in touch straight away on that, Andy. Dave Sherlock, he's in a student accommodation in Manchester. He got told to sign a form and get on with it. It's outrageous. The more worried about us not wearing our hard hats like lambs to the slaughter. This just backs up what you said, isn't it? I mean, let's say it. We're there. This is our opinions. This is not the opinions of On the Tools, but in our opinions, there's an element of bullying here.
Yeah, I know we have to be careful on what we're saying, but if someone's forcing you to go to work into what could be a dangerous situation, that is maybe bullying's a strong word. I don't know what the politically correct word for that is. But if you're having your hand forced, and we're all worried about money and things like that, that is unfair. That's my sort of view.
Well, Jen, back to your witnessing of 2-3 trades in a van together. Martin Bird, if you're commuting to a site with a colleague, the advice is open the window. Are they not taking our lives seriously? Because I think there is an element of pressure to go back to work. And, if you've got a partner at home, kids, mouths to feed, you've got to start earning money. But I think the big boys know this, and they're actually taking liberties here. That's my opinion, not On the Tools' opinion. But my opinion is we're under an awful lot of pressure, and they know that if we're not willing to do it, they'll get the next one down the road to come in. Do you think there's a bit of harshness for some of us?
Of course, they know exactly what they're playing at. They know exactly what they're doing, and they will pile on the pressure because they know people are worried that where they're going to pay their bills, worried about their jobs, but then they're being, like you say, they're being sent like lambs to the slaughter. I mean, what's opening a window going to do? They're sharing the same cab with the same air circulation and touching the same things. What's opening a window going to do? Nothing.
Well, what I'd like to this is the difficult situation is a lot of us trades, I'm going to be honest, I'm still the same. We live from week to week, and without work for a while, you're under pressure with bills and partners and kids and everything else to put food on the table and keep the roof over your head. I think the big firms know this and are willing to almost sort of push us to go back to work when I don't think the guidelines are right. I mean, 1 minute Matt Hancock saying keep 2 meters distancing, the next minute this site operating procedure, which I mentioned earlier, are saying if you have to work within 2 meters, then crack on. Jen, have you heard of any other industry quite as messy as ours, or is it, oh, never mind construction, all they do is dig holes all day, let them get on with it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it is. Definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. It's like they need us to earn their money. They need us to make the world go round. So what do we matter? We just need to shut up and get on with it. Because we're all just fit construction workers at the end of the day, aren't we? We'll just do what we're told.
Well, if you just joined us, we've got about 5-10 minutes left on this Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. I'm joined today by Jen Gardner, a decorator, and Andy the Spark, who is very similar to me. We're all self-employed, and we're discussing the big topic after Matt Hancock, Health Secretary, said he's comfortable of all trades going back to work. I bet he is. Sitting there in his lovely snappy suit with no concerns of going to a big site with 10,000 trades running around like lunatics. Andy, just quickly, coming back to the self-employed, because it is a big section of the construction industry. Us three are self-employed. Are you going to have to outlay some money to make sure you've got hand sanitizers, gloves, masks? Because this is something we've not thought about. Going back to work, we're not going to be going back to work like we did 5-6 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I'm quite lucky in one way that I work for myself. I haven't got any employees, but I've got the hand sanitizer, I've got the gloves and the mask, and it didn't cost me very much money. But it was getting hold of them that was the problem. And luckily, because my wife's a nurse, she managed to procure a little sachet of hand sanitizers for me to use. But I managed to get hold of some in the end. But if you're a big company and you've got lots of guys going forward, when the lockdown's lifted a little bit, then they are going to have to buy masks and gloves. And I've been using sort of latex gloves if I have to go out and help someone but they keep ripping all the time. It's hard because when you're using your fingers all the time with screwdrivers and things, they keep ripping all the time. So I'm changing them every 5 minutes. So I'm going through boxes and boxes of gloves, and that's going to happen with guys out on sites. They're going to have to get gloves up. But all the pictures I've seen of sites so far, I haven't seen any of them wearing any masks at all.
No.
I saw yesterday, I was driving past some roadworks, and the roadworker guys, there were 6 of them all looking down a hole, and they were all shoulder to shoulder. They had no gloves on, they had no masks on. I'm sure they don't live in the same house together. And they were stood side by side. That is directly down to their manager for not showing them that they should be protecting themselves.
Well, it's Tommy Raitt has made a really good point. Sorry, Tommy, if it's Raitt or Wright, apologies. NHS workers told to reuse PPE because of shortages. They don't care. So basically, we've been told to go to work, don't keep your 2 meters. Oh, a bit short of PPE. Reuse what you can. But Jen, even as a decorator, you're going to go through gloves quite quickly. It's not. I mean, I personally cannot stand wearing gloves, but we've now got to start doing it. The PPE is going to start getting shredded, especially thin gloves. Are you going to have to start looking to change the way you work to go back?
I think majority of the time, the families that I work for tend to be out at work anyway. Obviously not at the moment, that they're not. I've actually got to pop into work tomorrow, but I'm in an empty garage just doing some spraying. So I'll have a ventilator, a respirator mask on, and my gloves anyway. Like you, I absolutely hate wearing gloves. I like to feel, what I'm holding in my hands. I like to just know that I'm holding it properly. And the only time that I've been out the house is to go to the supermarket. And even then, I'm wearing gloves constantly. I do feel now that obviously even tomorrow where I've got to pop in, I will be wearing my gloves. I'll be wearing my wearing my mask. I'll have my hand gel with me. And that's even though that a family won't even be anywhere near me. You know, I'll be on my own in a side garage, not near anybody. But it's the fact that they could have popped in there and touched something, or, you know, coughed on something or anything like that. And not to mention, I've got children at home. I don't want to be bringing anything home. So the minute I get to the door, gloves come off, you know, everything comes off, and I just wash myself straight away, because of I have a daughter that's not too well either, so I don't want to risk bringing anything home. So I think I'm just getting worried about actually going into work too soon.
I think my worry is
looked at. Sorry, Andy, just one point, just because I'm trying to get these comments before they fly through. Neil Allen, obviously a landscaper or bricky looking at, he's gone through 20 pairs of gloves laying slab this week. So this is something we've got to consider when we price jobs. You've got to put in a certain amount of gloves, masks, you know, hand sanitizer or washing facilities. Is this something you're going to build into your price, or being a Spark, you can just lose that?
Oh. He's right. We will be using loads of equipment. Interesting story that I told you, my wife was a nurse, and she's dealing with COVID patients. And she came home. She showed me the masks that she's got. She's got paper masks. I said they're not really very good. What you really need is the FFP3 masks, so like the ones that really stick to your face, and they've got a little valve on the front.
Yeah.
And but we couldn't get anywhere. And luckily, one of my customers said, "I've got 5 of these masks, you know, in a packet. You can have them for your wife if you want." So that's brilliant. Thanks so much. I said, "Can you just go and ask your manager to get these masks? These are the ones that protect you more than anything." And she asked the manager, and she said, "Well, no, we don't need them. It's not going to get that. It's not going to get that dangerous." So it's not. I know we like to blame the government for everything, but in the NHS there is a lot of middle management that are not giving the PPE. So if you're a manager of something, of a big business or a big construction business, please get the right stuff for your workers. But my main worry is as time goes on, people are starting to forget how dangerous this disease is, because we've been staying at home, we haven't seen it ourselves. But I know 3 people that have died from it. I'm sure you guys know the people. I mean, you've had it yourself, haven't you, Andy? You guys know how bad it is.
I think there's one thing that we need to make clear on this is we're all different. Everybody's bodies are different, and people, environments where they live, etc., health, are going to be affected by this massively, lose their life, or probably don't even know they've got it. And I think everyone's got to remember that. You know, you may not realize you've got it with strong effects. You may not think you've got it. You may just feel a bit tired, but we've got to take some responsibility on ourselves. And, you know, I'm not saying don't go to work, get, stuck up at home, but I think the big thing is we've got to realize this is serious, Andy, as you say. I mean, this morning buried virtually an old mate of mine I played rugby with, which was incredibly sad because we couldn't give him the send-off he deserved. He got coronavirus. He was a big, strong prop, really strong, brutally strong. And if you had a list of people that were going to get through this, he would have been at the top of it. So I think it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, how fit and strong you are. Let's be sensible. The reality is we do need to earn money, but I think we've got to be sensible at going back to work. Jen, just quickly, we all want to get back to work. That's the big thing. None of us trades like sitting at home, especially with a list as long as our arm for DIY stuff, kids moaning, all the rest of it. What are you telling customers at the moment? I think that's the big thing, because being self-employed, are you keeping in touch saying we're going to be back soon, or listen, your guess is as good as mine?
I texted a few clients the other day just to let them know that I haven't forgotten about them, because I had 2 jobs that I was actually working on at the same time that were half complete. Well, one was half complete and one was nearly finished, just a few snaggy bits to do. And obviously, like I said to you before last time, one of the families that are half done, they both work for the NHS. One of them's got underlying diabetes, and it's like, I can't risk bringing anything in and out of their home. They work up by the hospital, and in the hospital, I don't want to risk bringing anything from their home into my home. So I don't know the situation with them, and when they feel they want me back, or when do they want me back? When do we think I can go back? when are they ready? Because I've got other clients that she was previously ill with pneumonia and they was told that they need the full 12 weeks isolation. At first, they asked for their deposit back, which I'd already bought materials and things like that with, and you live week to week on them. So I was like, bugger, like, what am I going to do now if my clients start asking for their deposits back? Lucky for me, he said, no, it's fine, just keep it. And they were sticking to the 12 weeks. But then yesterday they text me saying, you know, we're getting fed up of looking at the bare plaster walls and things like that. When do you think you're going to be able to come? So they've been told they've got to isolate for 12 weeks because she'd been ill with pneumonia. And now suddenly they're bored of looking at the bare plaster and they want me there to do it. And
we're forgetting about the virus, how deadly it is. That's the worrying thing. Even customers, especially that lady who was ill herself, and that is the worry. And I saw some comments on some post somewhere saying it's just the flu, go back to work. It isn't the flu. It can kill us, and we have to be very careful about what we do. We have to remember that it's a killer disease.
Yeah, let's. I mean, we're unfortunately going to have to bring this to a close. 40 minutes has flown by, but you know, let's remember this is a deadly disease. It's killing tens of thousands of people, old, young, fit, unfit. We've all got a responsibility to do what we feel is right. Sadly, it is down to us, I believe, because the government guidelines on construction workers isn't clear enough. Mega sites, big sites, back at work, hundreds of thousands of people within 2 meters of each other, and the self-employed like us three sitting at home wondering what on earth to do. So, Jen, thank you ever so much. Andy, thank you ever so much. Thank you for everybody joining us today. We have got a winner for the £20 voucher. Out the hat is Wayne Mitch. So if you could please get in touch with us here on the tools, message the site with your details and we'll get the £20 over to you. Just very finally, one quick question to you both. Same question, Jen, should we be back at work or not?
No, I'm certainly not done.
No, not knowing what.
Stay safe, everybody. The positive thing is, if you are at home and not at work, you can tune in because we're going to be doing one of these at least once a week, so we can have a bit of a crack and get involved. But more importantly, from us all here, stay safe, stay well, and we will see you all soon.
See you later.
Bye.